Welcome back to the Spinning Top Club. I'm Pilliter. Today I'd like to talk about belittlement, pseudo-masculinity, and nepotism, and particularly in the MGTOW and Alt-Right sphere. It is assumed that the Alt-Right is a revolutionary movement, that it is a movement that will change the world eventually in the magical year of 2050. And through this accomplishment, there will be no more liberalism, no more pauseness, no more SJWs, no more a marginalized left-wing culture, and there will be just post-libertarian, quote-unquote, ethno-states, where there will be white people, black people, Asian people, whatever that means, the subgroups of Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, as well as, hopefully, if in the plan, bicultural states, whether that mean through Asianarianism or mulatto-futurism, and one big multicultural, or maybe multiple multicultural countries that are similar to Brazil in design. This, in a way, is called post-libertarian human biodiversity. But this is something the alt-right wants. In particular, they want a white ethno-state on this kooky premise of William Pierce. Meanwhile, you have a MGTOW party, or alt-right, that doesn't really believe in this kooky, radical, far-right thought, and they just want to be men. They just want to do the right thing. They know the left wing is a bad virus, or at least the culture of the left wing, and they want to be a good man, whatever that means. And to do this, they have to tell others that they can be good men. And eventually, that would also mean another future where the normative value is, quote-unquote, cultural fascist, even though they didn't want the culture to be cultural fascist. They wanted it to be pro-masculinity. Ironically, between the alt-right, the MGTOW, or the Dark Enlightenment as a whole, there has been a problem where the movement was going, all these views. In particular, ever since Unite the Right, which I attended last year in August, everyone, all bad faces of the far right and whatever anti-liberal movement showed up in Charlottesville and could not even get along, or couldn't even say the N-word, or at least did say it, and became this frenzy fest, making the media and the liberal establishment more righteous. However, the alt-right has taken a blow, as only countercurrents is the last bastion of, or institution of, white nationalist thought written in journal form similar to the New Yorker. There are YouTube channels, and there are some people who are sympathetic, like JF and Big Cat Kayla, but they're very small and obscure. Luke Ford had a very important movement, or had a very important say in the matter, as he got a lot of fringe YouTube personalities and made them the political heads. Right now, the far right, or the white nationalist, white racial conscious sphere, has gone into a deep state, as predicted by Greg Johnson. Although there are some people now that there is no longer a Radix or a Colin Liddell, Andy Nowicki blog spots, or a ideally TRS, as those are old mediums, as the bigger corporations monopolize our thought, things are now more scattered, like a Discord server. So the very theories that the far right says about ethno-states has came true because of the internet. If you don't agree with this person, you will go with that person. If you believe in homo nationalism, well, you are fired from that place. And now we have 1 million YouTube podcast channels, or live streams. And this is just one of them, if anyone is viewing this. Now, there is no unescapable void that one of the greatest things that businessmen do is swindle the consumer in believing that they are getting the best of its product. And it's unfortunately to say that the alt-right and MGTOW movements have become an exploitation between the merchant and consumer, that it is no longer a metapolitical movement of change, since Donald Trump would represent that, and rather a normative cause of action to get normal people and be belittled so they can promote or advocate pseudo-masculine values. Along this irony that these people who have these campaigns, or at least their YouTube channels, are all on a network together to swindle you, or to swindle mostly normies who believe they're cutting edge and avant-garde. Realize that doing this, you are queer, and realize that having such views that are very radical will label you as a queer. Ironically, there are such individuals that don't want to be labeled as queer and want to promote a new Chad nationalism or some type of new normie who is anti-liberal. This has to do with the MGTOW sphere. But in particular, it is very hip in the alt-right sphere or anti-liberal scene to belittle the audience. To belittle the audience. That is, that the audience is insignificant. That every move the audience makes is wrong. That everything they do and think is wrong. That everything they know is wrong and they deserve for self-flagellation, self-hate. And pretty much to cure this sin, they have to basically follow the masculine wisdom and get red-pilled, quote unquote. However, it is simply a self-white guilt check of masculine issues. And many in the MGTOW sphere are pretty much just antisocial and introverted incels, or antisocial nerds who want to be all son jaw-claw that down and be masculine. But it's cognitive. And you could see that the liberal institutions are right when they criticize the alt-right and this MGTOW sphere, that there's this paranoia of working out all the time, this paranoia of picking up chicks using game, the paranoia of you don't do that with a girl. Well, race realism and the difference of the sexes is true. Those are true and can be put in anything, application. The problem is the inegalitarians, or at least this pseudo-masculine belittlement culture, uses it and reverts it to say, we're not queer. We're using this language to put force back in power. We're like the Romans against the Athenians. And now give a 21-year-old out in Pennsylvania this image and he'll have power. There's also this completely different culture misunderstanding between the culture of the left and the culture of the right. And the culture of the right thinks everyone on the left is degenerate or Jewish. Well, meanwhile, everyone on the culture of the left thinks the right is uneducated, misconcepted, and has the virus of racism, as Michel Foucault had said. Unfortunately, there's never a middle ground. If there's one truth, French philosopher Jean Belittlement, I hope I'm saying his right. Let me just Google search his name real quick. He wrote, the Gulf War isn't Baudrillard, Billard, Boulard. Let me Google speak it. I have this weird thing where I have to. No. Let's see. Text to speech. Okay, form text to speech. Boom. No. Google Translate. All right. Well.
Jean Baudrillard.
Bouliard. Well, if I say it wrong, it's your fault. I mean, if I say Bouliard, it's Bouliard or Boulevard. Bouliard. So Jean Boulevard, in his System of Objects, argued that Society, or at least the problem with any capitalist society, is that it's set up for consumption, not freedom. As much as Dennis Prager in his Burger U cabal will argue that in capitalism is freedom, that's not true. Boulevard argues that capitalism was only set up for consumption, that the mandatory mode of a merchant and a consumer is to consume. The merchant's out there, so his freedom is actually consumption. And the consumer is just a sincere, honest form of that, consuming what the exploiter makes, creating a consumer culture and an exploitive culture, one that is delusional and one that says it is therefore masculine or doing what is right to live. So we take this continental philosophy that's loved by post-Marxists or some type of new critical thinking leftists, and we apply it to the alt-right and MGTOW sphere. What we get with Boulevard's theory is that people like Jim Goad, Aaron Clarey, Ansgar Zinger, Matt Forney, Emily Yukis, they are not people a part of the revolution, but unfortunate individuals who are making money off of you. And fortunate individuals with 40,000 YouTube subscribers or more that want you to just buy their book. They are basically people who went into the English majors and their only business left is to sell the artistic people their books. They disguise and lie by saying they are masculine, that they wish they had STEM degrees, that they're real hardcore construction workers, when in all actuality, they will wave the flag of being queer and being an individual and relating to other queers, that they're queer like me. And kind of this pinkwashing, or at least as gays say when mass media misinterprets gay culture, there is this queer washing or pinkwashing of the unique snowflake identity and then reverse it to say, you've been wrong. All the SJWs are liars. You know that's liars. So stop watching The Quartering and other, Sargon of Akkad and get the real red pill. Start working out. Start reading Bang by Roosh V. Start acting like a Chad, the very thing you hate as a queer. And so you start to realize that this language by these YouTubers or by these booksellers want to belittle you, especially of Aaron Clarey. I mean, with a place like Asshole Consultant, you think it's funny until it really gets to you. Same with Jim Goad. He says that he hates you and wants to make you feel hate until it gets to you. Until where does this lead? Is this just nihilism? Is this just enjoy the decline? Same with Gavin McInnes or McInnes. McInnes, said by Emily Yukis. They want you to feel hate because you don't understand their art. And this is where the new modern art is going. It is becoming cultural fascist. It is becoming anti-liberal in thought. Meanwhile, while the alt-right and MGTOW says it's not enough. You hear a lot by Aaron Clarey arguing that it's the baby boomers' fault. There's something wrong with baby boomers. It's fortunately that he's not bringing up a cultural anthropology or historical lesson why baby boomers think the way, but rather just blames and hate them, somewhat as a Confucius does to a Taoist sensei. However, understandingly that some people like Brandon Adamson or Rabbit of altleft.com refutes and argues that there's nothing wrong with baby boomers. They had cool 1960s, 70s culture. And they're the first part of revolution, and the country was still 95% white. Why would they argue and say baby boomers are the shit generation? Self-flagellation, belittlement. And what do you have to do to solve this? Pseudo-masculinity in the Kali Yuga, as Julius Evola argues. And you start to realize that this language has been pretty much been used to sell this to the consumer. And it's not unique and cool and transgressive anymore. There are two fraudulent YouTube designers which have flaws like this. Those YouTubers are Coach Red Pill and Based Mama. Coach Red Pill, well, Sargon of Akkad said he once met Coach Red Pill, but Coach Red Pill is pretty much an individual with low self-esteem and has low confidence, and kind of just like any other normal, not good-looking individual that could live the good life of as a Christian. But he isn't, and because of this, like Elliot Rodgers, he has to belittle himself and belittle his audience. And then what he does is he pumps up his image by using fancy cameras that go 360 and up and down, looking at him while he talks about women are damaged goods, or don't date a wife who has a kid. And the most magical one, don't go to grad school, said ironically by a graduate student. Another thing that these belittlement types say is that they say don't go to college, not even undergrad, when they themselves went to undergrad during the 80s and 90s, or even graduate school, and got their degrees, and then realized that they had to play entrepreneur and be a public intellect, and seemingly didn't understand that. Don't you think there's something mentally wrong with Gen X people who do this? And millennials will just tag along, like Lauren Rose. They'll just tag along, and the White Rose. They'll just tag along and say, I'm cool like my parents. Please give me subscribers. This isn't any civil war or belittle what I'm doing. This is not rifting like Matt Forney does. In fact, Matt Forney, his whole business is, hating on other people. And it's funny. But then you start to realize Matt Forney is an exploiter merchant and you are a consumer. So it doesn't really matter. He just puts the playing field as you're walking through a flea market and you hear people yelling at you. In China or in Chinatown or any Chinese market, the ways Chinese people do business is that they yell at you. They directly yell at you and want you to come over and buy things. It's not the passion white individual coming up to buy the product out of their entrance and like ships passing along in the night by making a consensual agreement. No, in business in China, they yell at you until you come and give them their money. And this is a lot like what it is in the YouTube world, since we now have flashy thumbnails on our YouTube sidelong pages, and we'll click on them if they have subscribers or they're just unique. And everything's written in the first or second person. Interesting, the second person, you. It's about you. It's about I. I did this, or you don't understand. And so this really inflates the market. Aaron Clarey has said that he was just a lucky guy who did his videos in 2011 and got on the YouTube train at the right time to make money. And now he has a subservient cult of people. I'm afraid that's how an artist makes his money, by creating a cult, a religion of people, and then submitting and bowing down and buying their art of artsy cassette tapes and zines and posters and arts and attending their live concerts and super chats and meetings and VIPs and Discord servers. That is where the artist is going, unfortunately. However, we have to understand, or that there is this ideal that that where is the unique individual anymore? People are afraid to be like Chris Chan. People are afraid to be like Christian Weston Chandler. People are afraid to be the tranny that looks like a girl. People are afraid to be different. They have to conform to this new Chad masculinity, which was absurd in the 60s and 70s and 80s avant-garde culture as selling out or being a part of the man. And yet today, leftist culture has many beliefs that are against the alt-right. In fact, the leftists don't even use computers. They say that if you're behind a computer, you are a part of the problem because you're being not only an introvert, but being sucked by 1984 Big Brother and thinking that there is culture behind your computer screen, when your culture is in the Philadelphia basement punk show. And well, in any major city, not just Philly, but mostly a city on the Northeast or in California, maybe in some bizarre part of Portland, Oregon. And that's what the leftists all congregate and hang out. And leftists today are not even afraid to show the hammer and sickle. I was walking in near the Fillmore in Philadelphia, and you'll see hammer and sickles as if people draw swastikas. Same with the A anarchy and E equal sign. People really believe in the anarchy stuff to a LARPing extent, the same way that 1488ers believe gas the kikes. It's amazing how much is there a metapolitical divide, and yet the alt-right doesn't understand their enemies, and the far left, if it is a far left or just cultural posness, if it is cultural parts or just Antifa or punk culture, doesn't understand the alt-right. And you have two bickering families that go against each other. You think YouTube people would be able to put their wisdom to try to solve it, but they don't. They're just like Sargon of Akkad, where you, the consumer, is watching, passively watching a YouTube video by some big subscriber name. And then it goes into your consciousness while you live in Little Pennsylvania or Florida. And you continue your day-to-day shift at some 7-Eleven supermarket. And it feels like the revolution's happening when in fact you are just doing what you do as an individual. Now, what I just said there sounds like a belittling statement. I mean, I did say it in the second person, but this is very similar to the things that Aaron Clarey could say about the individual watching his channel. Now, what the left or what the cultural media believes is complete cognitive sedation. That everywhere you go, whether entertainment you watch, you'll see a black man or a black woman doing something white people usually do. This will just reassure white people that they are in a multicultural society, or at least everyone can be like them, right? White people just want non-whites to be universal individuals. But that's not true if you're a race realist. And so the media will go out there and sedate you that everything, even on YouTube channels on the alt-right, it's all it is consumer sedatism, being sedated. Boulevard, right? Boulevard, system of objects, argues that this society was set up to consumption. And MGTOW argues that you should rise above this and you should be a man, quote unquote, and become your own Donald Trump. Is that even true if you're watching someone who says the same baloney and then you're being consumed and giving them money? It doesn't make any sense. And so if it really is all theory about being kicked in the ass and being yelled at, verbally abused, it doesn't create a stronger man. Because supposedly men are supposed to do that. Men are supposed to take that. No, they get more nihilistic. Verbal abuse shows you that individuals will not do what they do. They will not turn into a Yukio Mishima. In fact, Yukio Mishima was a strong degenerate, by the way, and I would consider him queer. So I don't understand why MGTOW people look up to Yukio Mishima. What's happening is that verbal abuse from Jim Goad, Aaron Clarey, Answer Singer, Matt Forney, Emily Eucas, Gavin McInnes, that won't just uplift them. They'll just live in their suburban ruts out in flyover country, just keep doing drugs and say they are a loser, and they don't go anywhere. They don't become an artist. They don't become... See, and this is where the hip faction of belittlement is coming to. Hold on a second. Just had to let my cat out. But this is where this hip belittlement is coming to. The only way to join the merchant is to hate your consumer. There is a punk band from Cincinnati, Ohio named Realicide, Robert Inhuman, who I had on the Stark Truth before. And I have his video uploaded. You can write Pilliter space Robert Inhuman. That's the guy behind Realicide. But Realicide has a 7-inch in a song called The Audience Sucks. And it's about how the punk audience doesn't understand electronic hardcore music. Or that punk culture has become so accustomed to guitars, bass guitars, and drums, they are not willing to accept electronic music made on a laptop or drum machines. And they won't. or they might be a compromise. And that song was written almost 10 years ago. And there has been a compromise. And Robert Inhuman has argued on the Stark Truth podcast that you do see a lot of electronic acts now that are kind of like Machine Girl. I don't like Machine Girl, fake person, by the way. But you have these individuals now in the punk music scene who are using drum machines and synthesizers and laptops, and it's becoming the D beats are now on laptops. Now, accordingly, if you're really a masculine punk person or a far-right punk person, you start to realize that anything to do with electronic music is dainty and feminine. And it is. It's intellectual. How can you be punk if you're intellectual? Well, this is coming from Robert Inhuman. And Robert Inhuman, by the way, has a vasectomy, and he can't have kids. And I think he's gay, personally. I think he should just come out of the closet for being gay. He wants to be this Zay person, but I really think he has low self-confidence issue, alcoholism, you name it. But he's really showing his queer flag, and I wish he was a more professional. But anyway, The Audience Sucks by Realicide. You really think the audience cares about you? They don't. Or at least that the audience is treated as people who would treat you in road rage. They're strangers, and yet you rely on them to make money off you. And so it's very, very easy to belittle your audience. And instead of listening to deep rock Chokra or Joel Osteen, we're now hearing the gospel of Aaron Clarey and Jim Goad, the negative. We're hearing belittlement. And that supposedly this belittlement is going to change us into masculine people who hate liberal society and read the Kali Yuga. These people exist everywhere in white nationalism because white nationalism is queer culture. Meanwhile, Aaron Clarey and Jim Goad will not consider themselves queer. Though I will say Jim Goad is more an apparent queer, as he's loved by Margaret Cho and Chuck Palahniuk and anywhere from Gavin McInnes. He's got his queer street cred. And then he says he's not queer. He's just not meta-thinking about it. He doesn't realize he's a labeled Wikipedia definition. As for Aaron Clarey, he may be saying he's a Chad or a normie that's anti-liberal. But if you deal with anti-liberalism, you simply can't be a normal person. You're a queer. You realize you're getting the rejects of the modern transhumanist society and saying that they can be masculine and change the focus, the metapolitical masculine focus, as MGTOW argues, and do that. And Clarey is pretty much the staunch anti-SJW, anti-liberal, but there's no doubt about it, queers are interested in anti-liberalism. Queers are sympathetic to National Socialism. Queers are sympathetic to racist jokes. Queers are basically anything that their mom and dad told them not to do, or that they are self-destructive, right? That they listen to bizarre music, listen to the interesting art. So it's not possible to be a masculine person like Arnold Schwarzenegger and lift out in the gym. Otherwise, you'd be like Yukio Mishima. You would just perform this gay homo nationalist bun and cut off your head and write books. Now, Jonathan Bowden had a talk about the author of Conan the Barbarian, Robert E. Howard, and Bowden mentioned the interest that men don't read books, or that in the 50s and 40s, men don't read books, women read books. And if you're a man reading books, you're feminine, you're weak, and you should be bullied. Only two groups of people back then. Boys will be boys and girls will be girls. There were no third party. If you were out, there was something wrong with you, possibly criminal, like Richard Speck. That's what it was like. And so to be told to be masculine, like this Johnny who gets, or Jack LaLanne, you magically have a six-pack, that is pretty much the thesis of gay culture right now. That big macho gay culture of the big gay guy who works out in the gym and he just likes men. Well, that's what it's turning to. Or at least it's the ideal that masculine men have issues, that they have mental issues. That if you go to war and see some bullets fly through you, you might be like the Jenner family and just, or that general who thinks he's a woman, right? And you might just cut off your dick and say you have a vagina. Are you sure that isn't being shell-shocked? Same with masculine gay guys who go to the gym who are real masculine, hang out at gay clubs. Are you sure they weren't raped when they were young? Or are you sure that they hated themselves and they hated women? And gay people are a part of queer culture. So it's just not possible, because what Aaron Clarey is doing is saying that, well, if you're gay right now, well, you could just be gay if you want, but I'm saying you really got to be masculine. So what is it? What is it? Are you egalitarian or are you not? And so if you're anti-liberal, you have to be anti-egalitarian. Now, these are just some potholes I'm putting into his argument, but same with Jim Goad. Jim Goad is not this help person, but he's full of hate, right? You have to embrace belittlement and hatred all the time and do real hatred stuff. You know, I heard rumors that Jim Goad has AIDS and did gay shit, but probably true. But it's to prove you're hated, you have to be the biggest self-flagellator in the room. Now, ironically, Jim Goad named his new book "The New Church Ladies" after a quote by Jack Donovan. Jack Donovan, who's a natural gay guy, right? And why does Jim respect Jack? Why does Jim respect Emily Eucas? Because they're queer like him. And this is the nepotism I'm talking about. So we've gone over belittlement, pseudo-masculinity as being, you know, to overcome your belittlement, you have to be some kind of individual of some sort. You know, now we're talking about the ironic hypocrisy of nepotism. Keep in mind that these individuals, Aaron Clarey, Jim Goad, Amster Zinger, Matt Formey, Emily Eucas, Gavin McInnes, all of them, nepotism. What they don't tell their consumer base is that they're all having fun when the screens are off with other YouTubers or other people in the scene that they do. And just like a business, you want to know. If you want to know who runs the restaurant business, you want to know who runs your local Home Depot, they're individuals, right? That all through kissing ass connections, as Clarey wrote in Bachelor Pad Economics, it's the same in the art world, and it's same on this YouTube channel. If you look at my YouTube history, I've talked to people like Jamie Stewart and Richard Spencer and Rodney Allen Greenbat and John R. Dilworth of Courage the Cowardly Dog. The list goes on of Brad Sinclair. I can keep going on. I feel a certain amount of pride of that, and I do keep in contact with these individuals. That means through some weird connection thing of nepotism, eventually I might even meet John R. Dilworth on the line, and I might get a job in animation, or I might get a job as an art director. That's nepotism. And it's because of one little thing, and me exploiting you and telling everyone in the room that I know these connections. And so if you know these connections and you're good with friends, that gives you an upmanship or some kind of upper hand when it comes to the consumer who just talks. You see that Jim Goad has this ideal or philosophy that he says, I know X, therefore you don't know Y. You're ignorant, correct? And this gives you the pride what most black rappers feel like. You know, most black rappers have met that rapper, this rapper, until they get shot, by the way. But nepotism is a part of this YouTube game, is a part of knowing. You know, I know Greg Johnson, and I know most of the individuals at Countercurrents. I was offered to write at Countercurrents, but it's my staunch voice that I feel that as a young person, I need to talk about homo nationalism. I have this verge to talk not about white people, not about a cookie cutter buttercup do article about white people and skateboarding. I want to talk about real things. I want to talk about things that are happening in queer culture and what's happening right now. But that doesn't go against the agenda of saving the white race, because Greg Johnson says that whenever you attend American Renaissance, which I have, you are basically saving the world. That's right, saving the world. Again, it comes from, it's a different perspective if you're an education major. There is a different perspective. But if you're an artist, you don't have to listen to that. You want to get your views down accordingly. And there is soft censorship in the alt right now. There is a deep state. So the anti-liberal scene or the dark enlightenment is a mixed bag right now. It's really hard to be anti-liberal anywhere. Sam Hyde, who's the biggest nepoticist guy ever, and he's such a pro-belittlement dude, doesn't have a job at adult seminary because Tim Heidecker, a liberal, said no. You know, again, we could be talking about Sam Hyde, how he loves belittling everyone. He loves belittling in his book, and he loves belittling you. And this pseudo-masculinity. I mean, he even had a world peace episode about making fun of masculinity, this weightlifting Jack Donovan bullshit. But there are sad individuals that follow Sam Hyde and believe that they're actually closet 1488ers, that they believe in lifting weights. Bullshit right out your tongue. Because if you like, for every individual that watched Sam Hyde, how can you not ignore the music that he chooses and the bands he likes and the art? That appeals to a very thin, feminine outsider type that's into transgressive arts, not some Chad douchebag. And this is the hypocrisy I can't understand with these belittlement and pseudo-masculine types, is that they take an interesting artist and they try to make it masculine, right? The last little show concert I saw Young Bae. He DJ'd at Johnny Brenda's. He's known for his like anime future funk house, right? I tried to upload the video on YouTube, but it's copyright because he was DJing songs. But take a look at the mix bag. You got Waffles, you got A-Moffles, everything Asian Aryan and likes, but then you have that Chad douchebag in the room, And this is something that queer culture talks about. Queer culture likes to talk about when straight or cis people are in the room, because straight and cis people, they're not in group. It's kind of like a white guy going to an all-black rap concert. We know there's some discrimination going on, and so how can the douchebag, who has his cubicle job, show up at a Young Bae show? How dare he? How dare them? Because he's not smarter. He's not intellectual. He's not, and this is what white people do to keep others in check, by the way. But what I am saying is that it really is this Discord consumer reality, and that there are people who are trying to make queer arts into normality. There's literally CNN journalist Hiss Pete's articles about it's okay to be a cuck, it's okay to watch your girlfriend get raped, and all these disgusting things Dorkin would have been against. It shows you that this cultural Marxism or even cultural fascism is battling for the normative attitude. And watch the normie consume. That's all that matters. Billibard. Let's go back to the system of objects here. And all it matters is about what sells. It's about consumption. So we are on this sinking ship together. And I don't mean to sound that as we as a plural pronoun, as egalitarianism. No, as a staunch and egalitarian, what we are all fighting, as Jim Goad says, we have a common cultural Marxist enemy. What do you want to replace it with? Cultural fascism? It's ridiculous. It just seems like it seems like millennials are going to become the new baby boomers when A generation, the Z children, will be making fun of us in 2080 or 2070. I just can't believe some of the hypocrisy and logic you see now. And I don't mean to sound like Sargon of Akkad. This is a valued criticism of what's happening. Just keep in mind that belittlement is very popular in the anti-liberal scene, that belittling. And no, there's no enforcement of positive cognitive therapy, or there's no positive, you can do it, I know you can. You might hear that from Rouge time to time. I get it. But there's nothing practical. Everyone's reading this passive information. YouTube videos are passive. There's been this grand talk by Victor Flusser, who wrote, Does Writing Have a Future? That, or W.D. Griffith, who directed Birth of a Nation, argues that movies, they're going to replace literature. They're going to replace the written word. They're going to replace text. The problem is they're forgetting about passiveness, that watching a video is passive unless you use your mind and read the text like Chinese and you put words together, right? And take a look at T and Crot, or Crot and T, who used to be on YouTube, or Ryan Folk, who has fringe elements and now the alternative hypothesis. Not exactly alt-right, but he's anti-liberal, but I think he's a white nationalist, whatever. You look at these videos, you could read these. You could just read this on a Keynote or PowerPoint slide. But Crot and T and Alt-Hype, they make these videos which are flashy and educational. And they seem exactly what ContraPoints is doing. It's a show now. It's now a show to make you learn about Derrida. to make you learn about Foucault, to make you learn about Althusser, to make you learn about, I don't know, Girard, something like that. But it's now really popular to teach us continental philosophy or logic or race realist science and little boards, and you hear this Ryan Falk Asperger kid talk about it. Again, here I am doing the belittlement thing that Clary and Goad like to do, but this is humor, keep in mind. And is this how we're going to consume information now? We have to watch everything as a Hollywood video. Couldn't there just be like you're reading Musashi, and Musashi is just a big book. You open it up, you read the text. There's no images. The only images are the English language translated from Japanese, and you have to question that saying some form of deconstruction if you want to consider if you want to consider Peter Gabriel's translation of Norwegian Wood by Murakami legit, or you want to consider Bendabur or Slaughter Bura, Arthur B, both Jews who did translation of Norwegian Wood. You have to choose which one you have to choose your favorite translation of the work, and you are taking this information in, putting it back out. This is topics written like How to Read a Book by Wolfgang Iser, right? But we're now taking our information by the press of a play button, while our eyes, when I'm doing right now, staring into a computer screen owned by the Mac Corporation, owned by YouTube and Google. My eyes are on the screen all the time. That's work, unfortunately. And as much as we talk about an alt-right technocratic future, well, that's not going to change the fact that transhumanism, as predicted by Nick Land, is coming around the corner. That we're just going to be in the Matrix and be uploaded to the Skynet. And it seems like that every day. And as we consume on our fat asses like WALL-E, like that Disney movie WALL-E, and that's the future, we might as well create a transgressive art where we worship McDonald's, and say that, Sean Partridge, worship McDonald's and worship our fast food gods, and say religion is good, as much as all we have the atheists going around. I think the atheists were a fad, in the 2000s. So it's whatever, man. The atheists, and you sincerely believe, because people hate sincerity today, They hate it, even in the MGTOW and Alt-Right circles. They can't even admit. It's just something with white people. They don't want to be sincere. And if they're sincere, they're Christian Wollstone Chandler and they have Sonichu. That's what sincerity means today. It means the public, making fun of that individual. And it makes you question that if Antifa, so much in the anti-liberal scene, you hear talk about how much Antifa is hated. Antifa's a bunch of normies dressed in black. No, they're not. Antifa is a group of bright individuals. You look at, now if you Google search their name, of course, Antifa is going to be negative, because, the intellectual metapolitical Stammesdotstein runs the internet. And Antifa has a bad public relations program. There is no good public relations. That's because Antifa is extroverted and the alt-right is introverted. Introverted as in metapolitical internet sphere. And Antifa is extroverted, going to basement punk rock shows and zine stuff and clubs. And you have to understand that you can't just simply scoff off and say Antifa are a bunch of normie idiots. No, they're not. Antifa listens to bands like 7 Seconds and Gorilla Biscuits and all these, they have a classical tradition to them. It's just gotten bigger because, well, that's how you fight racism, supposedly. And the far right and anti-liberals don't understand this. And Antifa doesn't understand the right. And so as Donald Trump says, you have violence coming from both sides. It's true. And I really think that to wrap this up, what's really happening is that you can only be, human beings, the normative person is a sheep. And so if Aaron Clary is yelling at you for going to graduate school in critical theory, and he's telling you to go to graduate school in math so you can support the transhumanist enemy, the science against art philosophy, well, I guess then you're loved. Nepotism, and men naturally do this to women too. So if we have like Lauren Rose or Emily Eucas in the scene, and they're women, right, and they're doing something cool and edgy like a man would do, they get a free ticket. They get a leeway because they're women, right? And this is just something biologically geared in us, as guys, that, women get the free pass. It's like Sarah Silverman. Silverman can say, the N-word and Jews, well, because she's a little girl and she's Jewish herself. Same with Margaret Cho about Korean people or Asian people in general, race play, right? And so women get this leeway to be the edgy types, But Rush V called it out. It's very simple what you're seeing here. It's just the women invasion of when they don't get paid attention to. And, as queers and homo nationalists, most sincere gay guys hate that. Gays want to be with other men, and homo nationalists want to be with other men. They don't want to be with other women. That's kind of a myth. Unless you're the tranny and you wish you were a woman, then you create up the Amazonian tribe as the opposite of the Mannerbun tribe. Amazonian being all women. But Nepotism runs well. And if you say the right things, you tell, oh, no, Aaron Clarey, because I read Worthless, I'm going to go to STEM school now. Thank you very much. Then Clarey gives you a backpack, says, all good, and all you're on the lines. And you're shit if you take a degree in fine arts. Think about that logic there. It's just, here's the thing. It's like this weird, like, Clarey thinks he's edgy and cutting edge because he's saying that, I'm a transgressive artist. What's really happening is you don't want to take in the truth, right? There's this righteous motivation. Antifa follows a righteous motivation that they're fighting the virus of racism and fascism. Jim Goad is following the righteous motivation of you're wrong and I'm right. And righteous motivations, including Greg Johnson, believes he's saving the world because you need to have more white people or racial homogeneous people to balance things out. And so you notice this about transgressive art is that people want to have a righteous reason to go forth with their plan. Ironically, though, the only person I've never heard had a righteous reason was Jamie Stewart of Juju, who said he's a classical nihilist. But how can you be a classical nihilist if you're supporting Black Lives Matter? I mean, isn't that a reason itself? Is that a righteous reason? Well, if it's all for the blank nothingness in the Ragnarok world of endless winter and you want the world to be, dead, then that's nihilism, really. So yeah, it's really weird that transgressive art justifies its nature through righteousness. And that righteousness comes through nepotism, where you choose the individuals who is on your side, right? And this creates little wars, really. So you have your belittlement, that's really hip and transgressive, of telling people you're wrong and here's what you have to do by being a proto-masculine person. And that nepotism comes to those who follow the party lines because of righteous action. The righteous action that you're following the words of Clarey and being a STEM supremacist. Now, don't you think there's something illogical about this? Whoever's watching this right now, you watch other alt-right YouTube channels, whether that's Luke Ford or JF or Big Cat, you start to realize that you are following an ideological rift. Your baby boomer grandparents were following too. It was cutting edge to read Althusser and Derrida in the 80s and 70s when boomers came into power. They didn't have iPhones and smartphones or internet and YouTube back in 80. In fact, in the 1980s, they thought Japan was going to rule the world and Asian-Aryanism would be right. They thought video games were like, whoa, right? They thought race mixing was like a normal new evolutionary step in the 80s. Now, of course, we have that kind of clash that everything was so arrogant because it's white people talking about white people. And Martin Heidegger is right about the world, how we create our authentic and / inauthentic beings. And it shows you that there's an Asianization of America. And as an Asian Aryan, I understand that what's really happening here is that we're drifting towards more of an Asian society, and that we'll have grow features that are Asian and society that is more Asian. And then eventually we'll have a Confucius and Taoist thought in the making. And this whole queer culture that is pretty much in the center of white culture, of being the eccentric top of the progressive scrack individual and loved by our baby boomer media, Well, either that's going to continue through being this new eccentric Asian, or it might turn into the collective where everyone's a unique snowflake, queer individual. And so you really have these big thoughts that are not written or not spoken until now. And so I'll leave you with the audience as a interesting note that keep in mind that there is a lot of MGTOW and YouTube bullshit which attacks the audience in the second person or in the first person and tries to say what you're doing is wrong. When my argument is, if you have the money and if you have the guts, go ahead and go to grad school. Because it's so ironic, because there's so much in the alt-right that say, yeah, undergrad school is worthless. Undergrad is, both schools are worthless. Why would I go? Well, good luck getting into positions of power. Good luck getting into positions of power. Greg Johnson, makes a great argument for attending school. How can you change the system if you don't have a master's degree? How can you change the system if you're just some kid in Kentucky role-playing Matthew Heimbach's White Utopia? It's cognitive therapy. It's a lower class thing. Only intellects, those who are classist with a master's degree or college education, or even who's working in academia with a PhD, they decide, they know the world's truth. And you might say it's Marxist bullshit. Well, the problem is, do more research. Read Verso books. Read some Marxist leaning and get to it. Because if you have these anti-liberal beliefs, you simply can't refute them and go forth. Now, Jordan B. Peterson was probably one of the only PhDs to confront this, but now he's became a life coach. He's just saying something of the echo chamber. He's saying everything the MGTOW and belittlement philosophy is saying right now. Well, Jordan, he's only said a few belittlement things. I'm not even sure if clean your room is a belittlement factor, but belittlement, as you see, this kick in the ass is bullshit. This whole kick in the ass philosophy is bullshit. If you're listening to this right now, and this is true, it's a lifestyle the left promotes, be a queer. If you can't handle it, be a tranny. If you can't handle it, start your punk band and be an anarchist nomad. No one's stopping you. And that's why you would fight fascism. That's why you would fight racism, is because these people like Peterson and Clary and Goad are telling you their new transgressive art by being queer. And then you understand that this queer culture is being the most self-hated, flagellated individual ever. And so what difference does it make if you're a nihilist or you're trying to save the world, right? I'm trying to save the world by promoting this new knowledge and educating those on YouTube what really needs to be done. That's what I'm doing. And that's what everyone does on a YouTube podcast. Instead of being this talk show host on some alien, Jesus Christ was an alien conspiracy program, which I think is very interesting. I like Eric von Daniken. But I'm saying is that education should be, Google Hangouts should be more educational. And I should focus more on keynote speaks, the whole words written down word by word. So, as Dr. Louis Pulsifer of game design does on his YouTube channel, it's just you just read the words and listen. It's auditorial and visual, just like you're reading a book, right? None of this flashy bullshit alternative hype writes or Croton T does, and all the skeptic scene with their cartoon masculine pseudo-Asian Aryan society they envision. To get to the cut chase here, it's like it's oral. It's talking to an individual. It's like reading a book. And this is a battle of minds, really. And I'm battling the minds against the ideal that there's belittlement culture, and it's very hip right now. And if you're smart enough, you know how stupid it is. And I'm refuting it right now. So I guess I had to say what I had to say there. I'm going to see right now if there's anyone in the chat right now. I'm sounding like Aaron. I do like it. I do like it when Aaron Clary makes his sound effects when he goes, loser. Like I've heard loser before, 10, 20 years ago. And all his cartoony voice acting accents, I really do enjoy that. But it's like I've heard it before. I've heard Clary's philosophy before. He's not really solving issues that can help the person who doesn't have legs or arms or just is black. He written a book about black people, and it makes sense. But it ultimately concludes that you have to be white in order to be black. So it's just, again, Clary dodges anti-egalitarian. He dodges the human biodiversity question a lot and gives you the MGTOW thing. So it's like oh, it's you know, it's like whatever. Hold on a bit. Okay. Okay. Oh, look. Oh, wait. Angry Shark was in the chat. See, I don't look at my chat until I'm done what I have to say. So Mick Krim says thank you for streaming. Kevin Anderson writes, "What do you think about Bronze Age pervert?" Oh, I'm going to be like every other alt-right normie and say I really learned about Bronze Age pervert through Red Ice. I'm not active on Twitter. I mean, I do have 600 followers on Twitter, but I'm not like really active. So I seen his thing on YouTube, but my first question was, if Patrick Casey is talking about this guy, Bronze Age pervert, again, this is exactly why, people in music get on labels. They say something really popular, they say something really hip, they get a demographic, and then they get signed on that label. And that label might have been Red Ice, or that Bronze Age pervert, did a bunch of hashtags and like a forum, I don't even know how to work Twitter. They say that Twitter success is just yelling at people until you don't get a strike or you don't get banned and you get your influence out there. Saying like Ricky Vaughn did during the Trump election, And Bronze Age pervert does this in a humorous way and shows the masculine pictures. And then he wrote a book. But his book is pretty much the same regurgitated Julius Evola shit for normies. I mean, I like the art, but it just shows you that how come that when you're anonymous, like I had my name Pill Eater. I was on YTMND in 2009, right? I was doing this since it's almost my 10th anniversary coming up of the internet activity. But you're a Bronze Age pervert. You've only been doing this for 2 months. You get big. You're making book sales. You're getting $100, $200 a month. And then you don't show your real identity. You're too scared of that. You're fighting for your lives. And I just don't understand why people are willing to, like a Skinner box, reread the same information they've always been rereading. Like they're going to show this to their friend. Like everything's a humorous, sarcastic joke. I would just put R&H pervert actually in the category of hipster racism, to be honest. It's just playful, normative. Whoa, ride the tiger, dude. And it's like, you don't understand you're really queer for reading this stuff. But it's whatever. I can't make... If you want to be like Golden Age, go ahead. Hello, greetings, friends. Sure. But that's just one individual. I don't know. Did you watch 50 Shades of Grey? Actually, no, I've never watched 50 Shades of Grey, nor I never read it. It's one of those urban legends like Twilight. Every girl read Twilight, but no man read it. Every girl has read 50 Shades of Grey, but I never read it, so no. What do you think about Andrew Anglin and Daily Stormer? That's a very popular question. I don't read the Daily Stormer because the Daily Stormer is the complete opposite of Countercurrents, or at least, okay, so the Daily Stormer is a cesspool of shit. Okay, it's the worst aspects of everything. And yet Anglin has a fancy language of saying, oh no, I'm trying to get little kids who get light up shoes and Reeboks to be Nazis. That is cool. It's like, okay, that's cultural fascism to little kids, but then you realize how shit it is in general and how it's just like a 4chan website. And then when you're in the higher ups and you're reading Countercurrents, it's like, do you really want to be an intersectional alt-right person if you have to support this shit? Yeah, and the question is no. When I was at Temple University in Philadelphia, there were 3 gay clubs. There was the Gay Straight Alliance, there was the Queer Alliance, and there was the Gay for Democrats or something like that. So you had gays who were like neutral centrist and like normative. Then you had queers who said that those gays are wrong and they're like radical jihadists want to blow up other gays for not liking queer culture. And then you had leftist gays who were progressive and didn't want to get into gay culture. It doesn't matter. I want to fight and make gay marriage legal. 3 gay cultures, and all of them eat themselves alive. So intersectionality argues and says they should all kumbaya, my lord, and get together. Well, they don't. They all hate each other, and they all want different things. And so that's why I think about the Daily Stormer, really. I've met some really dysfunctional people, even an Asian Aryan who really liked the Daily Stormer. And some of it is just delusional. And I think it's the worst aspect of people and gives liberal media the right to say it's some bizarre, dysfunctional, mentally ill Nazi, like race destroying Nazi kid or something like that. Sounds as, damn it, my phone. Hold on. Okay, that was just my phone. It was the Vita RX spam call. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's queer for liking Daily Stormer. Yeah, you get queer points, but it's a little too like incoherent. You're just a nihilist, really. And I don't really have much to say on England other than that. There's Angry Shark. What do you think about Weave? Weave's a Jew. If you don't think he's a Jew, you fell for it. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, Bronze Rage Pervert is pretty interesting, Shark. I think Weave's a Jew. You're right. Weave is a Jew. And Weave is a hipster racist who hangs out with Sam Hyde and Emily Yukis on occasions. And he's so fucking cool. He's exactly what Antifa is, but he doesn't tell it to his people. And another thing I can't understand about Weave is his laughing. He laughs every time. He has to laugh at everything. It's like, that's not funny. It's like he doesn't know how to control himself. And Greg Johnson goes under the hipster racism for having him on his show. But anyway. Yeah. Tim. Yeah, I can have a talk about the whole. I should have a talk just about Pizzagate and the Pedogate just for a single episode because I'm very interested in that. And the Tim Heidecker and Eric Pato thing, that is a good claim. It is a very interesting claim. Don't read it. Well, too bad. I've already read it, Angry Shark, and I think it's hilarious you are watching this right now. But I think I've had everything else to say right now. But I'll be back on soon. So that is what I have to end in conclusion. You have to keep in mind of belittlement. Thank you.